PG&E received a $5 million safety bonus 6 weeks before a pipeline ruptured beneath a San Bruno neighborhood and killed 8 people. On September 9, 2010, at 6:11 p.m., a natural gas transmission line failed under Crestmore Drive and detonated into a fireball, carving a crater 72 feet long and 26 feet wide. A 28-foot section of steel pipe was hurled 3 blocks away. Witnesses reported flames visible from across the bay in San Francisco. 58 people were injured, 38 homes destroyed. At first glance, it reads like a sudden tragedy. A mid-century pipe gave way and lives were lost. But the closer record is less chaotic and more bureaucratic. A ledger of omissions, misclassifications, and priorities misaligned with public safety. PG&E, which had repeatedly assured regulators and ratepayers that its gas infrastructure was being managed and modernized, had long acknowledged that its pipeline records were unreliable. That admission, however, stopped short of the critical details that would later explain why an aging line detonated the way it did. The National Transportation Safety Board's investigation laid out a pattern that was not confined to a single error. Internal audits showed thousands of miles of pipeline whose records were incomplete, contradictory, or unverifiable against physical inspection. PG&E had a program intended to fix those records. A program that existed more on paper than in effective practice, constrained by limited funding and understaffed teams. The California Public Utilities Commission conducted periodic inspections and issued compliance orders, but its oversight relied heavily on PG&E's self-reported data. When regulators accepted those reports without independent verification, the system ceded its primary check, external validation. In 2010, PG&E reported roughly $180 million spent on gas operations safety. Over the prior decade, it had spent about $56 million on lobbying and political contributions in California. It earned performance-based incentives from the CPUC for meeting benchmarks. 6 weeks before the rupture, PG&E collected a $5 million safety incentive, a payment tied to metrics that did not account for the precise accuracy of the very records that would prove decisive. The human cost of those administrative failures was immediate and cruel. Jacqueline Gregg, 44, sat in her family home on Earl Avenue, about 100 feet from the rupture point, when the ground opened. Her daughter Janessa, 13, died with her. Her husband William survived with severe burns and the horror of discovering them. The Crestmore neighborhood was ordinary in every sense. Yards, neighbors who knew each other, dinners, a street children rode bicycles on. Pipelines are usually invisible until they are not. Infrastructure becomes a threat only when oversight fails. The NTSB's 550-page report documented how decades of deferred maintenance, inaccurate record-keeping, and inadequate regulatory scrutiny combined to produce this catastrophe. Now, the central damning revelation: the failed pipe's construction had been misclassified in PG&E's records. The company's database described the section as seam welded, which required certain inspections, but in fact it was electric resistance welded, ERW. A different construction with a higher susceptibility to longitudinal seam failure. That misclassification meant the pipe never received the specific inspections it should have. What looked like an isolated rupture was the predictable outcome of a system that had repeatedly failed to square its paperwork with physical reality. The legal and regulatory aftermath was substantial, but for many, insufficient. In 2016, PG&E was convicted on 6 federal felony counts, including violating pipeline safety regulations and obstructing the federal investigation. The company paid a $3 million criminal fine and accepted 5 years of probation. In 2019, while still under federal probation, PG&E pleaded guilty to 84 counts of involuntary manslaughter for the Camp Fire, the deadliest wildfire in California history, and later entered bankruptcy before emerging in 2020. The CPUC imposed a $1.6 billion penalty related to San Bruno and conducted its own structural review, acknowledging the oversight failures the NTSB had already described. The $5 million safety incentive was returned after the investigation. The returned money did not restore the lives taken, the homes lost, or the trust eroded. If infrastructure is the quiet scaffolding of daily life, San Bruno showed how lethal it becomes when administrative shortcuts and misplaced incentives replace rigorous verification. Subscribe to Case Files TV, because understanding how systems fail is the first step toward preventing another street from becoming a crater.